Yeah, films. Yeah, films. We watched some films. Now let's talk about those films.
Yeah, why don't we hop in?
Hop
And
in.
let me tell you about Assassination Nation. And you, as a viewer and a listener of the Ghouls, with your media literacy glasses on, can digest the information of this episode and make come to your own conclusion. I'd love to hear from you about what you feel this film has done, and if you like it or not. If you feel like I'm complaining. like I'll just like something, and I do.
Yeah.
There are things I like, and I would have liked this film had somebody else made it and somebody else cared about a little bit more about what they were doing, instead of perpetuating harm. So let's talk about Assassination Nation. It is from 2018, and it's about after a malicious data hack exposes the secrets of the perpetually American town of Salem, chaos descends, and four girls must fight to survive while coping with the hack themselves. And it's directed by Sam Levinson, who also did Euphoria and The Idol. I've watched Euphoria, and I've felt emotions about it, and I do enjoy that parts of it exist. Yeah. Mostly for Zendaya, but and like some of the other things that are happening, but there'll be more on that later. Because I do have feelings about Sam Levinson that I can't, like, as a media literacy show, I have to talk about, because the film isn't just what's happening on the screen. It's everything around it and the influences that come about. So, Assassination Nation is a bloody, intense thriller that mirrors a modern-day witch hunt, tackling head-on the chaos and hysteria fueled by sexism, social media, and toxic American ideals. It is a seething anti-sexist tale of vengeance with strong femme characters who retaliate to not only blunt violence, but the sexualization of their bodies. At least that's what they're telling you it's doing. They are telling you, like, strong on telling. The film follows the lives of four teenage girls, Lily, Beck, Sarah, and Em. More like one and a half of these teenage girls. Not everybody gets equal screen time. I don't even know if I knew the name Sarah and Em, I'm gonna be honest, until I looked it up. Which
they don't really give them any character development at all.
Or lines.
But
it does follow them as they navigate the complexities of high school life in the digital age. So set in the seemingly idyllic suburb of Salem, a little heavy-handed because there's a witch hunt that occurs. The story takes a dark turn when a massive data breach exposes the private information of the town's inhabitants. So someone releases their emails, texts, and photos online. And the town descends into a frenzy of paranoia, violence, and revenge. As you would, I don't think it would be that extent, but there is a great discussion of just what would happen if all of our secrets that we think are happening on the internet weren't so secret anymore, because it is the internet and the cloud exists, and nobody, all your stuff is just one data breach away from being shared, and is often shared with companies. Right? So your data is never not shared.
And I'll get into that a little bit, but it's a whole thing. And also it's if you're thinking about what would actually happen if this scale, it already does kind of happen, just you don't get every single piece fed in a 1.5 gigabyte downloadable file, which is a whole other weird thing. It's why would I even download that? It could be a virus. Whatever. But it's it's not as everyone could read all your text messages and would take the time to do so without organizing it in any way. But you do get your data set everywhere. And the companies do have enough money and time to organize it in a kind of way that makes it useful to them.
Yeah. It's just the motive here was really let's cause chaos. And they did. And nobody we all have conversations, or we share intimate details, things that we don't want to share with other people. It's not always bad things, but it can be taken out of context, which is what happens in the film too. Somebody's life is completely upturned, and it makes no sense for that to happen, but I also get why it does. And you can really relate to that part of it. There are some things Yes. So
continue.
Lily is an outspoken teen who is often defending her right to exist in her body. She's confronting constantly other people in the way that they see her and like interpret her and her friends' existence, and like manipulating the presence of her body.
Yeah.
Which is ironic because of the way that she's portrayed on screen.
Yeah.
She and her friends try to survive a world that sets extreme expectations upon them and still retain pieces of themselves. So Lily and the other girls find themselves targeted by the town's enraged residents who blame them for the leak at some point. So on top of the fact that like they're angry for other reasons, then they're coming after her because they think she's the one who released everything, which doesn't make any sense because she's one of the victims of the leak. It like doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But as the town of Salem descends into madness, the girls must band together to survive the night and fight back against the town. And along the way, they confront issues of privacy, sexism, and the dangers of mob mentality in the age of social media. And in a gripping finale, they confront the dark forces that threaten to destroy their lives in the community they once called home. Or so you can infer.
Yeah.
Because the victory does not happen on screen.
Nope.
I never felt a win. I felt upset. I felt sad the whole time. So, like, it gave you the illusion of win.
Yeah.
It was like off screen, they fought back.
Yeah.
You know, like they fought like once.
Yeah, like for a minute, they killed a bunch of people. It was done.
So, this part of my section is called Mr. Levinson. Do you mind stepping off your high horse for a minute? I have just a few words, because I think that man needs to come out of his entire ass for just a moment.
For a moment.
Here's some words. So this film is brimming with overt lecturing commentary delivered through lengthy monologues and blatant imagery. It reminds me of how we felt Midnight Mass in our Flanagan series was almost like Flanagan's diary, right? We felt like it was his innermost thoughts and explorations given life in those characters. Like a lot of those epic monologues felt like someone working through something. Yeah. This felt like constant lectures, right? It is an incessant diatribe, a feverish blend of hypersexualized teens and violence interspersed with Lily's musings and her just like, don't you feel awful that the world sexualizes teens? And I'm like, yeah, I do. It's just kind of hard to accept that message and that like rant and like ridicule while you're sexualizing teens on screen.
Yeah.
Like not just like them doing mundane things and us taking it out of like, you know, out of like what's happening, like imposing sexuality onto them when they're doing like regular life. No, you were over sexualizing them. And then being like, So unlike Flanagan's work, which felt both universal and personal, like the things that he was exploring in Midnight Mass felt like a universal experience or an experience that we all could relate to. Yeah. Levinson's feels like neither universal nor personal. It has nothing to do with him. Yeah. Which is really the big thing. Like, who are you to tell me? Like through Lily, like using Lily as your mouthpiece. Who are you?
Yeah, to be conveying this message. Yeah. So,
like throughout the film, I couldn't shake the feeling that I really wish that somebody else made this film.
Yeah.
Because I just like he's hovering there, and that it's apparent. Like it would be okay. Like I would even give him the benefit of the doubt. Like I'm not saying that people can't write stories and create stories of people who they aren't, like their own lived experience. I don't think you need to always write what you know in that way. Like you can learn and you can have other people contribute. But this is an instance where it is very clear that his lived experience and his viewpoints and his prejudices and his like toxicity infected the film.
Yeah.
If it worked, like if he did a great job and it wasn't gross, I would be like, great, good job. I'm so glad. That's not the case. So yeah. Each minute that Lily spent lecturing the audience on their sick, twisted fantasies of over-sexualizing women, I recoiled. I was like, ew, like, what do you, like, you're not telling me anything I don't already know.
Yeah.
So that's the high horse where I'm like, come on down. buddy.
Yeah.
What are you doing up there? You can break your neck. In one scene, Lily confronts her father, who mentions that he never felt comfortable around his young daughter when she was naked, like when she was a child, right? And this is because a character in the story is being the victim of this witch hunt because he had pictures of his child when she was in the tub and she was naked. I was like, I have pictures of my sister when she was a toddler in the tub and she's like covering herself up, but she's like naked in the tub because she's a baby and not like that's life. Never once was I like, oh no, I shouldn't, like, this is a baby. And so Lily asked him why he would like put inappropriate connotations on a young girl's body, his own daughter's body. Like, why do you feel uncomfortable around my child body? Which is absolutely right. Like, shouldn't a father feel comfortable and be able to bathe a young daughter? Absolutely, without feeling any type of wrongness or sexual, literally anything. That should be applicable, right? And she's completely right. And I would feel triumph. And I remember watching it the first time and being like, absolutely, that is true. Like, I'm glad she said that. Because there's certainly things to think through. There's certainly like the, like, not bringing your family around, like not bringing your kids around family members who do that, who are like,
who
oh, she shouldn't be
safe.
Yeah. Any like grown man who's like, she shouldn't wear shorts that short. Like, excuse me, my baby, this baby. Why? Do you want to expand on that? What's happening with you? Because you just told on yourself, right? And that's her. Like, and I in like initially when you're like hearing that, I'm like, yes, like that is absolutely true. And I would feel like a piece of triumph if the film wasn't screaming that nudity isn't inherently sexual while over sexualizing the bodies of these young girls in the same breath. Right? Like Lily literally says that, like, it's not inherently, like, nudity isn't inherently sexual. Point blank, that is true. But the film was sexual. The film did sexualize nudity, right? And to have Levinson at the helm of this film, who is notorious for over-sexualizing young girls on screen, right? Euphoria, The Idol, this. It feels skeezy and it undermines itself, right? The fact that he has written in, like, the first season of Euphoria, so many scenes where the actresses were like, I don't think I should be naked for this scene, or I should be more clothed for this very emotional scene. And, like, having to fight for that is creepy. Like, these are high schoolers. Like, even if the actors aren't, like, these are portraying
high schoolers.
So it's like, who are you? Like, and this is like before like, so it's just like, it's such a weird thing for him to be like, don't over sexualize girls. I'm doing it. This is my space and it's okay because I know that it's wrong. No, buddy. So when we covered Tag a long time ago, which is a J-horror film that purportedly challenged the genre's over-sexualization and brutality towards young girls. Like, that's what it told us it was doing. We were left with a question. And I think we've taken that question that we discovered on that journey through our media literacy of that episode, and it has followed me through a lot of films that are like, we're confronting and like challenging stigma or tropes or like, you know, like, we're trying to like address this problem. And the question is, when does subversion cross into exacerbation, right? So like, when does, like, where is the line of I am confronting this issue come to I am contributing to this issue further? Because there is a line, right? At what point does satire and critical media just become another iteration of the problem, right? And unfortunately, this film falls into that category because I wanted so badly to like it. And I'll begrudgingly admit that there are many cinematic elements that live rent-free in my head. Like, for one, the very long shot of the house, and they're like, you know, there are people who, the girls are in a house, and once the leak happens and they're like, the girls did it, these people in the town decide they're going to come and attack these young girls because that's the logical conclusion for that. And it is a really brilliant shot. And it's the same thing where, like, I often reference one of my favorite long shots is from Spring Break. which is not a good film. But there are elements to that film I really like as like from a cinematic perspective that I take, and I'm like, this is, and there's a long shot in that's brilliant. I love it so much. There's also like a colorization that happens in it. There's a lot that cinematically brilliant. The film itself, nobody. It ain't it. And that's the same thing with this. Like I can, like both things can be true. Yeah. I can appreciate some of the cinematic elements and understand that Levinson has a talent for portraying things in a certain way and doing it beautifully. And he has a shtick. He likes like putting school marching bands in it. He's got tropes, you know, he's got his little things like over-sexualizing teenagers. He loves doing it. Yeah.
And I mean, it matters who's telling the story, like, because you could use things as plot devices, but like if you're perpetuating harm through plot devices and your show, as you said, telling on yourself, like he's very clearly telling on himself because of what he uses for plot devices. And is it his right to use those things for plot devices? Probably not.
And people just keep letting him.
Yeah.
That's the issue I have. It's just like pass the torch now. Like if clearly people are interested in stories like this, we could probably tell it a different way. And I'll give Levinson some credit, right? That he has become an inspiration for me to make my own films, right? Yeah. Like, I say this often, right? Where when I watch a film that makes me so angry, it just like fuels the fire where I'm like, well then, baby, here I come. Yeah. I can actually confront these stereotypes and social issues without causing more harm because I am aware of when it is causing harm. And I am a subject of that harm often, right? So, you know, they do say, like, if you want to see a certain story happen and you're not seeing it out there, make it yourself. Yeah. So thank you. So the problem is that the film spends an absurd amount of time abusing these young bodies on screen. Yeah. Like the majority of it is them being sexualized and in sexual situations or being brutalized. Like hard stop. There's no real wins or victories or care for these characters, which I get, like that could be your message, but like it's a bleak one. It doesn't have any wins. And like you branded this as like a revenge fantasy, and it's not that, right? It brutalizes, mutilates, and tortures the girls and then brands them as heroines in the end. Like at the end, it slaps on like, oh, look at us. We fought back. Yeah. I'm like, when, babe? When? It's a rushed version of the rape revenge trope, which the Ghouls notoriously despise. It's rushed in that like it spends 90% of the film doing the brutalization and gives us 5 minutes of revenge the revenge, which is not like there should be a turning point in the middle and then we should feel cathartic. I don't feel any of that. So any vengeance that happens feels less triumphant. It feels tacked on and undeserved. I don't feel a win when the girls kill their abusers or even when they let them live. Yeah. I don't feel like, oh, they're the bigger person. I'm like, nah, kill them, kill everybody. Like the girls themselves have a conversation in the film about rape revenge horror and how if they wrote the film, they'd brutalize the men and let them play through the fantasy of retribution. And I was like, hell yeah, I would watch that. And it's just like, it's ironic to me that they're having that conversation and that he would be like, he'd have the wherewithal to write that conversation and then not deliver anything close to that. Like, it's like, I'm like, you're so close. Like you were so close to the point and then you just contribute to it. So like for all the commentary lauded for its feminist undertones, it is the feminine forms that are the most brutalized on screen. Their pain is at the center of the screen, and the real villains, which are plainly the men screaming, "We are good people," as they manhandle and grope and brutalize these young, bloody teenage bodies, are never given the same torture. Right? Their ends are met quickly through gunshots at a distance or a swift slice at the neck as they gurgle to death just off screen. Like we don't see that happen. It doesn't feel victorious because I'm focused on her who just suffered more harm and she doesn't even get to win. Like it's not rape revenge at all. Yeah. Like at least with those films, like they get to like be excited about the revenge. Like, like they're still in it. Like, I don't know. For me, it's like, don't criticize pornography and then make a career out of making artsy teen pornography. Like, he has like a whole line. One of his diatribes is like, the boy's like, I learned everything I know from porn. And she's like, that's the problem. Is it? Is that the only problem we want to talk about, babe? And that's the way we want to do it? Like, don't throw stones in your very glass house, buddy. My last rant about Levinson, before I get into like actual media literacy, like more than this, is that he's a thief.
Yeah.
In more ways than one. So stealing the careers of young women who refuse to conform to his unnecessary demands for skin and submission, like writing them out of a really great show where they were amazing characters because they didn't want to do what you said.
Yeah.
And a thief of art. The most well-known aspect of Euphoria, other than Zendaya being an amazing actor, is the Gen Z aesthetic. Right? Like ads, trailers, entire dream sequences of Euphoria are drenched in a very specific look.
Yeah.
And I know you know what it is, right? And it's like this glare, it's like ethereal is the best way. It's sparkly. It's the colors, it's extremes. It's like this contrast. It is like a dream sequence. And that look does not belong to Levinson. It is not inspired by Levinson. And you can see he was very close to it in this film. He was getting there on his own, in his own little way, and he should have kept to this, because instead he stole it from photographer and videographer Petra Collins. So Petra was contracted by the Euphoria team to consult and work on the show, given her amazing art. She was set to direct episodes and help them complete the look. Only when the time came for her to make good on this opportunity, the team said that she was too young and pulled out. And first of all, she's not. Second of all, that's ageist and gross. And so instead, they stole her designs and entire artistic identity for a show that she never even got to work on. And it infuriates me as someone who has also suffered in a similar way in this industry, of someone being like, you're too young, you're too nice, like this. Like, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm not a piece of shit man that's like abusing people on set. Like, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm not that. That sucks. So you might actually recognize Collins' work if you've watched any of the music videos for Olivia Rodrigo's Good For You album. Stunning. And undeniably the inspiration for Euphoria. Like, look up any of her photography and you're like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Collins also did this really great photo set with the actors from Euphoria, like a few different ones that you should 100% check out. She did like a siren series with the actress who did Maddie. She's done one with Kat, the actress who plays Kat, who's the one who doesn't have as many scenes. Might wonder why. Things like that. Like, it's just like hard for them to have this conversation when this person's doing those things to them. So I just think like Levinson, you really owe her and literally anyone who's worked with you an apology. Okay. But don't look at me. Don't take your hate out on me. I just got here.
Yep.
That's what she says. So I digress. As I mentioned, I so badly wanted this film to be made by someone else. So let's unpack some of the themes addressed in the film and just keep in mind how none of it actually really matters because Levinson's involvement perpetuates the harm. But here's what it was trying to do and what you maybe could take from it. And maybe we can ignore the glaring violence and harm.
Yeah.
And say, like, I learned something. I didn't. I know all this stuff already, but whatever.
Someone doesn't, I guess. You know,
maybe you need it to be this way. I don't know.
Yeah.
In the midst of violence, the vengeful third act sees Lily standing in front of a comically large American flag. Subtlety I've never heard of her, is what this movie subtitle is. In a lengthy monologue, she confronts both the townsfolk and America itself. As the town relentlessly pursues Lily and her friends, she metaphorically and literally turns the gun on the rest of the community, and she says, they may say it's because I'm behind this, or that I'm a whore, I'm amoral, I'm a homewrecker, I deserve it, I have it coming. I didn't hack anyone's shit, and I don't know who did. As for being a whore, amoral, and a homewrecker, sure. It doesn't hold a fucking candle to your righteousness. That's the real sickness here, your righteousness and hypocrisy. It's a simple fact that you can't live by the rules you set, yet you still pretend. This is your world. You built this. If it's too strict, tear it the fuck down. But don't look at me. Don't take your hate out on me. I just got here. From the moment I arrived, all I was given were orders. Smile, open up, cross your legs, spread your pussy, speak softer, scream louder, be quiet, be confident, be interesting. Don't be so difficult. Be strong. Don't fight back. Be an angel. Be a whore. Be a princess. Be anything you want to be, even the president of the United States of America. Just kidding. Right? And she goes on and on. It's a long one. And it's interspaced with, like, we see girls watching it and they're like we can infer that they're like, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And it, like, they look as bored as I am watching it. I'm going to be honest. It's like, it feels like she's like, look how kick-ass this is. And I'm like,
it's very white feminism. It's right.
Yes. In a review in the LA Times, which I was very thankful for finding, titled Assassination Nation is an exploitative horror that has the gall to lecture us on girl power, Katie Walsh speaks truth, saying, the dude really tried to mansplain the virgin horror paradigm in the midst of this exploitative claptrap. Right? So Levinson is doing entirely too much, so heavy-handed in his, see, I'm not like all men, I get it. It's criminal behavior. And he's lost in his own pride and so far up his own ass, he doesn't see how harmful the film actually is. And in discussing the mob of faceless townspeople, Walsh explains how they're not even the true villain. The artful misdirection of Levinson's filmmaking is, right? He distracts us with the violence and blatant lectures while palming the truth away, like an evil magician. She says, that may be representative of the chaotic random evil of an anonymous attacker in the hateful hetero white male mob. But visually, Levinson makes clear his target. He and cinematographer Marcel Rev, who establish a leering gaze directed at the girl's nubile bods, take much delight in wringing every sexy moment out of attacking young women, shooting scenes of violence that are gratuitously pornographic. Right? And to have Lily, right, in front of that American flag, preaching through the very screens that held her nudes, right, sent to a grown man who suffers no repercussions by the townspeople. And, like, the version we watched, I might be misremembering this, and I imagined it. I thought his, like, wife left and was like, there was a scene of that. I think the one we watched was edited where it wasn't there, or I made that up.
Well, I mean, we watched it on Tubi, so we didn't have, like, the extended cut or anything like that. Yeah. So it's possible that does exist.
Possibly. The one we saw, nothing. We just, like, infer she's not there anymore.
Yeah.
Because, yeah. And then, anyway, these screens that she's, like, preaching to people on held her nudes mere hours ago, right? Igniting a lackluster revolution of young women everywhere, when in every opportunity, Levinson objectified this young girl while claiming feminism. He's like, it doesn't count because she's strong. Nudity isn't inherently sexual, but it is when you do it like this, bud. Right? And so on a last note, on the laughable feminism of the film, Walsh gave me a very good laugh saying, this is common in the horror genre, but this goes above and beyond. And the difference is that Dario Argento never ended his film with a boneheaded lecture about feminism. He, like, did it, you know? Like, there is over-sexualization in horror, and there's a way to critique it without being such a heavy-handed, like, look, I'm a good person. Like, it's giving, like, doth protest too much.
Yeah.
Like, what are you trying to tell me? So some last themes the film covers are mob mentality. So Lily gives some bullshit statistics on how some people are good and others are bad, but oops, you didn't consider the internet and all that. American values or the eroding of civil liberties, like that whole tirade where she's like, you built this society. Lightly glazed and mentioned in the monologue tirade, right? One scene where I felt they did it truly right was when the girls call the police for help, but the pig that shows up contributes further harm. Like, that felt believable. Like, he was awful.
Yeah.
Like, they call, like, for help, they're being abused, and the guy shows up and then leads a tirade.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, that's fine. And lastly, the illusion of privacy. And whether this is the idea that anything we do or have done on the internet disappears, or the idea that we are not to be held responsible for our behavior online. Because there is an illusion of separation, right? That our internet selves are someone else and therefore free from repercussions. But the witch hunt existed before the internet. And though this mob donned purge-style masks to retain their anonymity, most monsters say the quiet parts out loud and wear their hatred as a badge of honor.
Yeah.
So, like, again, you're not saying anything that we don't already know. And also, it's not entirely true. Like, there are, you know, like, keyboard warriors out there who think that they're, you know, separated from, like, repercussions, and they are. But again, like, the real witch hunts happened before the internet. People have been hating on women forever, and this isn't new. So there are quite a few things that I did enjoy about the film, and on our first watch, I vaguely remember enjoying most of it.
Yeah, we had good things to say the first time, which is just like, yeah, it shows growth.
Yeah, I think just after years of forever, like, perpetually wearing our media literacy glasses, it's hard to see past this representation. It's why Lily's speech feels forced in, like, a lecture, while America Ferrera's incredibly similar speech in Barbie can hit significantly harder. Right? Like, when she's explaining the dichotomy that we live by, right? The expectations that are impossible to achieve as women in America or just the world, that felt real and resonated with audiences everywhere. And this doesn't. This feels like I'm being lectured by, like, it just doesn't hit. Right?
Yeah.
Because representation extends beyond on-screen characters. It includes those behind the camera. And even, like, representation wise, there's very few characters of color in this, and they're given no attention, no voices. The black girl in their group had, like, a line. I was like, oh, whoa, they gave her a line.
Minimal, yeah.
And she, like, half-assed delivered it. And then he had, like, the black marching band walking through this white suburban area, like.
And it was also, like, in a lot of the violence that took place, it happened a lot to black characters without giving them any screen time or autonomy to, like, have wins. Like, they just brutalized the heck out of that family and, like, didn't talk about it again. Like, they killed that person's mom. Like, it was wild. And, like, literally was just like, it's fine. Let's focus back on what's her name.
Yeah, Lily.
Yeah.
And, like, it's black and trans. Like, the brutality that happens to Bex is horrific. And, like, not to undermine Lily's experience, she also had some really awful things that were happening to her, and just close to being very awful, like, even worse, right?
Yeah.
But she still got retribution. Like, it's as half-assed as it was. Like, she still did. And so, just representation is a big deal.
Yeah. And it's very, like, white feminism told from a male lens, and you could tell that that's what was happening.
Yeah, and I think despite Levinson's claims of involving young actors in the process, his continued dominance in storytelling feels inappropriate.
Yeah.
like if you get it, step away, right? He teased us with colorful girly pop feminism and delivered gore and booty shorts. It sensationalizes and capitalizes on the very issues that it claims to condemn, thereby undermining its message entirely, right? The use of sexual violence lacks depth and meaning, serving only to shock and titillate rather than to provoke genuine reflection or critique. It is an insincere critique of these issues. Instead of offering a meaningful examination of the ways in which society pathologizes female sexuality, the film reduces these complex issues to mere spectacle.
Yeah, and you're not left with anything. You know what I mean? Like, there's no next step. There's no, like, oh, this is what I should do. Like, literally, it's just like, yeah, go get guns and shoot the bad guy. Like, that's not revolution. Sure, absolutely. But, like, you can't, like, there's no message at the end that's like, you should go do this. Let's work together, solve some problems. It was not that.
Yeah, and I think, like, there's one line that I feel like was actually the hidden thesis of the film, is when Bex decides not to kill someone, and they're like, not all men, right? And they, like, laugh, and it felt very disingenuous, especially because, like, it was all men, and he didn't string it up, but he didn't stop them. You were still going to die, like, from these transphobes. Like, you were going to be murdered in a thing that happens quite often in our country for these reasons. And you were like, well, I'm not going to let him die because because he didn't exactly kill me, but he did. Like, if you're an observer of violence, you are also a contributor.
Yeah.
That's the whole film. That's the whole film. To me,
the film was
like,
not all men. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, but it was like, actually, yes, all men.
Yeah.
The film taught me that actually it is yes, all men.
Yeah. It was the time.